Chapman, Ron, how you doing this morning, brother?
I am fantastic, man. Life is good.
You always have been. Damn near every time I ever met up with you, that always seemed to be the way your world was working.
It's a choice, dude. Sometimes things don't go right. I'm still doing fantastic. It doesn't matter.
This is true. I mean, it's experience. You're going to get something. I've got this thought process, and of course, that thought process exists everywhere. You're going to get your ass kicked winning. You're going to get your ass kicked losing.
Yep.
So you might as well take the beating that actually ends up getting you things and getting you relationships and giving you experience.
Yeah. Learn from the knockdown, get back up.
Yeah, I think we only leave this world with two things: relationships and experience, right? And you need them both. You need to be and get them both. So those of you who don't recognize who I've got on here, Mr. Ron Phillips, I don't know that I've said your name a few times in podcasts and stuff, and people ask a certain question. And, the reason that I have Ron on here is because you guys have all seen how long this thing is, right? And how long we go on that. And I made a comment. I don't know. I think you and I talked about a week and a half ago about this.
Yep.
And I asked Ron to join us here, one, because he's in the space, right? You're in the real estate space. What do you got going on right now in that?
Same thing as always. So we sell hundreds of turnkey properties a year to our client base. And then in addition to that, I do multifamily and, anything else real estate related that makes money.
Yeah, well, and a lot of real estate makes money.
Yep. Been doing that for almost a quarter of a century now. And it's been very, very good to me. So
very, very good. I've been financing it since 1997 and then started on the real estate investor in 2003. Last year, we did 1,378 for real estate investors. And I just keep trying to keep building on that and help a lot of them. Well, the second thing I brought Ron on for one, because we can have a conversation about the market stuff. But in 2016, he and I were members of a group together, and I would see him at least once every other quarter. So at least a couple times a year. Yep. And at the time, Ron actually had a hell of a big old beard on him, walks into one of the meeting rooms, sees me, and I'm standing there, and I kept it trimmed to about right here. And he said, "Hey, yesterday my beard was longer than yours. Mine was longer than mine yesterday." And I made the comment, and I don't even know if you remember it, but I made the comment, "I will not trim it till I see you again." Thinking, it's probably going to be 6 months, right? It's been since 2016 since I sneezed this man's face.
Yep. And man, that's really long, dude. And you can clearly see that it's longer than mine. So
yeah, you don't have a chance of saying that comment right now. And that was the whole point. As the whole point was like, want something, you're not going to be able to say that to me next time I see you. Well, I didn't think it would be nearly 6 years later.
Yep.
Who would have thought?
Yep. So long that I forgot. And it's interesting that we haven't even seen each other. That's the crazier thing is that in the world we live in, which is a pretty small world, really, it's not that big, and we hang out in a lot of the same places. It's remarkable that we haven't seen each other in that long, so long that I forgot the comment. And it was a comment made in passing that you probably thought was going to, we'd nail this down next quarter or 2 quarters, whatever. And here it's been 6 years. And, well, I got to say, comments made in passing, apparently all comments made by Aaron Chapman are serious comments because your beard proves the fact that that's the truth. So,
and it's interesting. And I don't know that I expected you to remember it. But the honest truth here is I believe if I say something, I have to live up to it. So, and a lot of times I say it with a certain expectation. And that's the thing that's really the lesson here. When you open up your mouth and you say something, really think ahead on what you're saying, because my expectation was 3 months, maybe 6 months, be a little uncomfortable. Guys, 6 years to this damn thing. I have to lift my head up when I put my belt on because it gets caught in the buckle. That's the kind of thing we're dealing with here. Rolling over at 3 o'clock in the morning, it'll wake you up because it gets caught in stuff, right? You can roll over on this thing. And it's not, and what is now has become, what's really interesting about this, my desire to that itch inside, or that whatever that's causing me to constantly want to live up to what I say, has now built a brand. I can't get rid of it. And my wife is about probably 3 years ago, heard me on the phone with somebody and I was talking about it, and they asked me something about the beard, and I explained where it all came from. I couldn't grow a beard. I had a bad motorcycle accident, I had a patch right here. When filling in, I tore up that side of my face and I woke up in the hospital with a full beard. I'm like, hell yeah, I can't walk. I got a memory that lasts 3 minutes, but I got a beard. And that's when I decided I'm not going to trim it until I learn how to walk again. So it got about to here, I could start taking steps. And that's what got me to keep it. Right. And then it kind of became a brand then. And then with that comment that we had became even more of a brand, because now people recognize me because of the braid and the fact that there's a, real estate investment finance expert that shows up, but then decides to look like me. Right. It changes a lot of things. So now I've also found that if you're going to commit to something, you got to be not only committed to that, but you got to be really good at what you do if you're going to go against the grain at all, especially in the banking industry. So to me, honoring your word is extremely important. I don't think that happens a lot in the world these days, unfortunately.
No, especially in our world, man. I don't know what it is about our world, but it seems to attract some really good people. I know some really good people. So I'm not saying that it doesn't attract solid human beings, but it tends to attract some real douchebags in addition to that. And they give everybody in our space a bad name. So I think we do have to overcompensate for the douchebags. So those of us and if you're listening and you're one of the good guys in the industry, we have to overcompensate for the douchebags because they hurt our industry, man.
Yeah, we have to overcompensate. And it's not just the people who are listening to their industry, it's the real estate investors that are part of my network and your network. If you're listening, there's an easy way to be tempted in today's market with what's going on with inflation to follow what the big companies are doing and raise your rents by 10% and 15% and 30% and really just pound your tenants. Guys, we need to be more benevolent than that. 5, 6, 8% is a really good markup on what you're doing, right? If you've got a property, you're cash flowing, let's say you're getting $1,000 a month rent, and you're cash flowing $200 a month. You can, in some markets, raise it $200 to $300 the next year. But even if you only raised it 3%, and this is another thing you need to be cognizant of in ownership of real estate, of what your compounding cash flows can be. If you only raised it 3%, that $1,000 a month grows by $30. That $30 becomes $230 the next year. If you divide that 30 into 200, that's a 15% compound growth in your cash flow. Remember that you get to continue to raise those rents, and you want to think of it the right way. Don't be the asshole. Don't be the douchebag, as Ron's talking about. Don't take advantage of your fellow man. Be a little bit more benevolent individual, and you will always be successful. 15% compound growth off of 3% is nothing to feel bad about. I mean, that's a phenomenal growth, especially when you consider the real estate, the loan itself is being paid back with something that's compounding in a decline. You're paying the lender back less than what you borrowed. And I'll show you the calculator QR code in a minute to get it. So, because when I come back on Tuesday, I'm going to show you how to use the calculator and show that you can calculate the lender's getting less than what you borrowed. So we'll come back to that. But as you're saying, everybody has to be better. And so I want to make sure I hit on that for the real estate investor. Be better than the next guy. Don't take from people.
Yeah, and that's not to say that if you buy a piece of crap and you put, like if you buy a multifamily property and you're putting $30,000 a unit, $10,000, $15,000 a unit, whatever you're doing, that you shouldn't be compensated at market value or at market rents.
Oh, 100%.
I think if you buy a piece of crap, you don't do anything to it, and you increase the rents $200. I mean, what did you really do?
Who's the piece of crap then, right?
What did you really do? And I was on a thread the other day on Facebook where someone was ranting about this and basically calling everybody who was raising rents. I said, look, these guys who are out there buying properties where the only way they can make any money is doing what you just said, they're going to get shoved out of the market anyway, because there's an affordability gap that's being created here. And I don't know why it is that the hedge funds and the douchebags that are out there that are following this model think that it's going to continue to work. Rents do go up typically when everything goes to crap, because there's a lot more tenants and there's a lot less properties. But that doesn't mean that rents can't go down. And I keep hearing this out there a lot, that rents don't go down, rents just go up. That's actually not true. Over time, rents go up, but so do the prices of properties. But sometimes it takes a while. And if you're buying based on future appreciation of rents or future price appreciation, you're in for a rude awakening, in my opinion. And that's going to eliminate a lot of the douchebags over the next couple of years. The market has a way of eliminating people that take advantage of others, in my opinion.
100%. And that's why we need to be sure that the people who associate with us, both in business and, in clientele and all stuff, understand that when you approach it the right way, you're not the one that's going to get eliminated.
Yep.
Right. You need to build your business in a way right now where you can still justifiably continue to get an increase, right? And when you look at that from the perspective, what's 5% over 3, 4, 5 years, instead of this, hey, I can get a 20% growth in my rents next year. And then the following year, you're going to price yourself out of the market. You can be left with the bag. Do it the right way, and you will always have. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
That's ultimately why you're as successful as you are. So what I'm going to do here, because I got Ron finally face to face in 6 freaking years, there's a part of this thing that's got to come off. So what I decided to do is I've got a knife given to me by my buddy Larry Yatch. Do you know Larry?
No.
Okay, so Larry Yatch was this is his book, How Leadership Actually Works. I don't know if it's backwards or what direction you're seeing it.
Yeah, we're seeing it right.
Larry was he was the team leader for SEAL Team 3 for 10 years. Very, very good friend of mine. He is basically, I would say he's kind of like a modern Napoleon Hill or Earl Nightingale type guy, but with a body count, right? So there we go. That's the one.
And this is, guys, if y'all listen, this is what I do every single time. So when somebody I respect says something about a book, even while I'm on here supposed to be listening to what he's saying, I've pulled the book up and I'm going to buy it. That is what I do, and it's worked out really well for me. So I would encourage you guys to do the same thing. When I hear about a book, rather than going and writing it down, I go buy it.
Well,
there you go.
Here's another one real quick while you're doing that, Ron, because this has changed my life. This is the absolute greatest book that's ever been written, in my opinion, next to the Bible or any other scripture. The Master Key System by Charles Haanel.
Sweet.
This
get it
by
right now.
By far is the greatest thing I've ever picked up. I still carry my copy with me everywhere I go. It's all beat up. You couldn't even be able to hardly read the front because I've underlined it, I've marked it, whatever. But Larry, he and I actually went moose hunting together. It's on my other YouTube channel, our Moose Hunt. We spent a lot of time together. He's also worked with my team, helping us get some stuff done. But he gave me actually a couple knives, one that he carried personally for a length of time. This was his personal carry that's in my pocket now. And then of course this one. So this is the one I believe sharp enough I'll be able to get this thing trimmed off here, guys. But I need to trim this thing back. I'm going to pick the skinniest part here, and I'm just going to knock this out. So there we go.
Yeah,
some of this off.
It was way too easy, man.
I know. Well, I thought I was gonna have to saw on a little bit, but so now we got a lot of it knocked off. And I appreciate you coming on to allow me to do that, man, because this thing has been getting caught in stuff. It's getting a little unhealthy at the end of that, all skinny and unhealthy.
Well,
and we wanted to point out, honor your word. The more you honor your word, the more people will attract to you because they know they can count on you. Trust is the most underrated, most valuable thing that we have in our life.
I couldn't agree more.
So let's get into some market stuff real quick here while we're here. So I tend to like to share what's going on in the mortgage-backed securities for people. Actually, before I do that, I need to move this out of the way. Here we go. All right, so I don't know how much you follow the mortgage-backed securities, Ron, if at all.
Yeah, I'm actually on your email list, and I listen to this pretty frequently.
Awesome. Makes me happy that you do. So what we've got here is what I've marked is I've taken all the downward trend stuff out, and I've marked what we believed was a floor of support in the last couple of days. So we had this gap up right here, this gap up jump that usually creates a floor of support in the technicals, which we bounced off the support 2 days ago and bounced out and stayed off to use that support yesterday. I thought maybe we're going to be in some pretty good shape today. We actually went below that support, which can be fairly risky, but we've traded fairly deep into it, been working our way back. Hopefully we close above this. It sets up the market for have a little bit more of a stable position for rates going forward. Rates will continue, I believe, to continue to eke up. There is talk of what we're going to have next week with the CPI. Right now we're at a CPI of 8.6. Next week there's belief of 8.7. I think that might even be a little bit light. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, I think they'll lie about it, and then it'll get revised up. So there's already talk that the CPI is going to come in lower than it has been, which is going to save the administration from the recession that you and I both know we're in. And every single time when the numbers come in, they're not the real numbers. They report them anyway, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, they revise them either up or down, depending on what it is, whether it's GDP or CPI or whatever it is. They report them in their favor, and then they move them to where they really are, and it doesn't get reported. So the only thing that gets reported is the first thing that comes out of their mouths. And then the talking heads all get on and they talk all about how great everything is, when every single person out there can feel that it's not great, and you feeling it that it's not great is the truth, and they are lying. So
100%. And that revision thing is very, very, very important to understand, because they like to put the revisions out later. And those revisions start to hit in places where you're not paying attention. The big headline number hits, and then they revise it a couple months later and say, oh, we were a little bit off. And then we've got Jerome Powell in the last week. We talked about that last week, where he's saying, hey, we've just learned that we don't know a lot about this inflation thing.
Yeah, this is all uncharted territory, and they don't have any levers left to pull. Like there's no lever left to pull. And, so far what they've done has not stopped. It hasn't even paused inflation. And I think you and I both agree that it's not going to. Inflation is going to continue to go up. And I know you talk about this as well, but they're not even reporting real inflation. I mean, they're not even reporting it.
Oh, no, not at all.
A little over 8% is not at all what inflation really is right now. Anyway.
Well, I've got it right here. In fact, I'll get another quick little share screen so people can see what we got there. I mean, this is the current reported rate of inflation, 8.6. The real rate of inflation, if you track it all out, you're looking at about 17.
Yep.
This is off of shadow stats. I talk about shadow stats all the time. And the real important thing with this to understand, and remember, they're saying right now, it's like inflation is the highest it's been in 40 years. It's higher than it was 40 years ago. Not just high, it's significantly higher than it was. And it also tells you we know they're cooking it. Right now, if they take CPI, and they can be right and wrong at the same time when they're talking about cooking the inflation, they can say, hey, CPI is the highest it's been in 40 years. It's true, because everything that they measure with CPI is still its highest in 40 years. They just decided to take certain things out so you don't see this massive reading that we've got. Now, one of the things that I talk about this with inflation that everybody getting a mortgage right now needs to think about. They're really freaking out, saying, man, should I get an ARM? Should I get an interest only? Should I get better cash flow? No, control what you can control. The 30-year fixed, we don't know what the ramifications of this inflation is going to be. If you can fix it for 30 years, you can maintain it for 30 years, you can weather whatever's going to happen based upon controlling that. Now look at this. I'm going to show what it was 40 years ago. So this was the mortgage rate 40 years ago. We're right here. 40 years ago, it was 18, 19% 40 years ago.
Yep.
Guys, that's right. We're right now being given a gift of about a 13% gap. You're seeing people somewhere in the sixes when it comes to buying an investment property using a 30-year fixed mortgage, which we're writing for you, and you're getting this big gift. So quit freaking out trying to hunt around for something, because the longer you hunt, the more opportunity the market has to move to put you in a position of a worse rate. It's everything.
Aaron, I've been saying the exact same thing. I don't understand why the push for moving to ARMs, and this is the same thing as buying properties on for appreciation of rents and for appreciation of property. Buying because you can get a lower rate and make a deal work, or make a little bit more cash flow on a deal, is silly. Because if you're banking on the rates coming down anyway, why wouldn't you lock in a 30-year fixed right now and then refinance in 4 or 5 years if the rates come back down? You don't know whether the rates are going to come back down.
Exactly. And
but the bank is stuck with it if you lock it in, and you can always refinance. And so I just don't understand the logic behind going and putting yourself in a place where you could really screw yourself over with an ARM.
Well, and because then it's a play of hope, and then you have to refinance at some point, and you might not be in the right part of the market. Now, here's the other thing people need to be cognizant of. This is our current federal fund rate of 1.75%. Updated as of this last month. Here's the federal fund rate when inflation was at the same point before. Look at this, over 17. Guys, you got to understand that we're also still being given a gift. And if you want to understand why, what you just said, why people are going to the arms, they're being led to the arms by the lenders that don't give a shit about them. Because what's happening in the background, they're talking cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, but it's happening in the background. The leadership is telling them, sell the arm, because all you're doing is baking in your future refinance business. They're making you their refinance slave. I tell them, you don't refinance for rate, you refinance for cash out. Because what ends up happening, if you refinance for rate, you go back into that period of paying heavy interest. You go back into that period of paying all this cost to catch it up. I've got an example in here that will take this, we won't get into it because it'll take this quite long, but ultimately a person that keeps refinancing at the times the banking industry convinces you to, you're locked into paying. I have an example here. It's a $120,000 loan that he started with. In 20 years, he pays $180,000, still owes $119,000.
Yep.
And
that's the piece where if you don't look, there are more returns than just cash flow. Cash flow is important. It's the unbreakable rule. Like you don't go buy properties that are negative cash flowing. You buy as much cash flow as you can get. Okay, granted. And cash flows have contracted, so they're not as attractive as they were 5-6 years ago. But everybody forgets about the principal reduction and the tax incentives. If you combine all of those returns, there's nothing else out there that you can buy as an investment that matches these. And the other thing that people don't think through is what you were just saying, that on an amortized loan, every single year, the percentage of rate of return that you get from having someone pay off your mortgage goes up. And it goes up exponentially every single year. And so you have to look at the holistic investment. You can't just look at cash flow. You have to look at the whole thing. There's nowhere else you can make the same return that I'm aware of. And that's why I continue to do it. That's why we continue to buy them. And that's why we continue to lock in 30-year. As long as you can lock in 30-year, you should lock in 30-year, period.
100%. And then, and you got to get, the right property, the right instrument, and the right team to work with, period. So I appreciate you getting on here, Ron, backing us up on the stuff that we've been claiming, because you and I are always thinking the same way. And it's damn good seeing you for two reasons. One is just to see your face, man. And then secondly, finally get a chance to trim this thing down a bit.
And you know what's going to happen now, Aaron, is that we will probably see each other in person because that's just the way the laws of nature work. So
well,
it was great seeing you.
Wanted to test me for the last 6 years and make sure that I was going to stand up and wear my commitment on my face, which I did. So like you said, we're going to see each other all the damn time now.
My friend, appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you, man. You take it easy. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll see you on Tuesday.